Anyway, oh, hang on. Shall I start with?
Yes.
I was wanting to. I won't record yet. I was wanting to know about the ACE2 receptors and how it is, how they're involved, and then how it's affecting the heart.
Right.
So I don't know if you've got a little soundbite you could do, if that's what it's called, getting quite technical, a little soundbite on that, and then I could literally put it on my Instagram.
Yeah, sure. I'm not sure about the ACE2 receptors because I haven't looked into that
No,
specifically.
I haven't. I really can't. I've been looking, but I can't find anything.
But I do know from Simon Mills's video, but also just in general, that cardiovascular problems like hypertension and diabetes and atherosclerosis in general is one of the biggest risk factors for having complications of COVID. So one of the recommendations that Simon Mills made was that you should have things in your diet which reduce inflammation in blood vessels, in the linings of blood vessels, vascular endothelium. And we know from cacao, the research into cacao, that it's a really good vascular endothelial anti-inflammatory. It's vasodilatory, so it improves blood flow. And it's a little bit of an immunomodulator, so it modifies the immune system a little bit. But the main benefit potentially in terms of reducing the risk of getting severe COVID would be the benefits to the circulatory system. It's going to reduce the inflammation in the linings of blood vessels, which seems to be the biggest risk factor. So I don't know how that specifically ties in with the ACE2 receptors, but we do know that eating really good quality, high polyphenol content, that's like lots of brown stuff, dark chocolate, is helpful, or should be helpful.
Fantastic. Because with the antioxidants, they're mopping up the damage in the tissues, aren't
Yeah,
they? So they're sort of reducing damage.
That's probably one of the mechanisms. They think the polyphenols, they're antioxidants, which means they mop up free radicals, which I always say sound like little Che Guevaras, but it's not. Free radicals are like, they're little loose electrons that are produced in normal cellular activity, and they damage other atoms around them. So they're produced naturally in metabolism, but I kind of like describe them as being like soot from a fire. And eventually the soot builds up and damages all the cells around it. So antioxidants are substances which mop up that soot, which mop up those electrons and stop this sort of dirt accumulating. That's probably part of the mechanism, but probably not the whole of the mechanism, because they found in cacao, even when they removed the polyphenols, there's constituents in the cacao that sort of seem to protect the linings of blood vessels a little bit. So there are several mechanisms that might help there. One is that cacao extracts increase the production of nitric oxide in vessels, which is a vasodilator and protects them from damage a bit. But there are probably other mechanisms, maybe even non-antioxidant dependent mechanisms in cacao that haven't been fully worked out. Like they found out that epicatechin that you find in cacao, it's one of the flavonols, but it's also found in green tea.
Yeah.
That actually binds to specifically delta opioid receptors on the heart. Some of its cardioprotective activity, some of its ability in trials, it seems to reduce the risk of heart attack, maybe down to that direct action rather than just antioxidant activity. So that's something that, so cacao is a brilliant antioxidant, and the main mechanism seems to be antioxidant, but there are other non-antioxidant dependent specific pharmacological actions going on there which haven't been fully worked out yet.
Oh wow! And in terms of endothelial integrity, so keeping the blood vessels nice and tight, and not presumably leaky. That's also exactly leaky, because that's what's happening, isn't it? People are saying, people who are getting it back, people who are getting it and even recovering are saying that part of it, they feel like they're drowning because they've got all this fluid coming with the inflammation.
I don't know that cacao would be enough to, I'm just not suggesting it as a treatment for COVID.
No,
and I don't know that it would be
thing to add to the diet.
I mean, there are other plants that might be helpful there, hypothetically, like white horehound, or plants that traditionally were used as cough herbs and reduce inflammation in the lungs. Obviously, we have no clinical data, but there's other. But in terms of chocolate or cacao, dark chocolate, not milk chocolate, not white chocolate, dark, higher cocoa content, the better, obviously. It might reduce the risk factors, and we know that chocolate also reduces, it has some benefit for chronic coughing and for asthma, because theobromine is a cough suppressant. So dark chocolate was found as effective, almost, I don't think quite, but almost as effective as codeine in some trials for stopping coughing. And it also contains a few compounds that dilate the airways. I mean, this is all in my book, but I cut off the top of my head. I'm not sure I can remember off the top of my head the name of it, because it's got a few little compounds in it that do that, in addition to the alkaloids that dilate the airways a little bit. Not strongly, it's not going to work like Ventolin.
Yes, of course.
It's got that nice combination of something. So there are worse things to add to your diet, basically, because it will.
Exactly. So all these things, all these dietary measures, all these supplements, all these herbs that one can get hold of, or if you get to a good herbalist or whatever, all of these things can work together, plus exercise, plus, being happy, lots of things that are going to help your immune system, right? Okay, that's brilliant. And so if you were going to, like, especially in lockdown, if you were going to get a good supply of chocolate, where would you be getting it?
Yes, I would suggest my number one would be, it's called Willie's Supreme Cacao. But he does eating chocolate. I'm not talking about his eating chocolate, although it's lovely, but it's 70%, which means it's 30% sugar. And the higher sugar has the exact opposite effect of cacao, interestingly enough. So sugar, that, for example, in population studies, they found that people who eat the most sugar have the highest risk of heart attack and stroke. So that while people who eat the most chocolate have a much lower risk. So the cacao, the brown stuff in chocolate, sort of, what's the word? It undoes the sugar. It's more than enough to counteract the sugar content, but you need the brownest stuff possible with the least sugar. So Willie's does this, these blocks of cacao that are 100%. They're for cooking. But you just grate them and make a drink out of them with hot water, and you can add your own level of sweetening. So you can add a little bit of maple syrup or a little bit of honey, some vanilla or some cinnamon or some chili, but you just literally grate the blocks and then put that in a jug, pour on boiling water with a bit of honey and a bit of whatever spices you want, and then whisk it. And you made this really amazing dark chocolate. If you can't get that, or because the blocks are about £6 and you can order them online.
I've seen them in supermarkets.
And yes, I think Waitrose does them as well. But if you can't get hold of that, then the next best option would be any dark chocolate. The higher the cocoa content, the better, because a dark chocolate is going to be one step down from something like Willie's, which is just the Willie's cacao is just the cocoa beans toasted and made into what's called cocoa liquor and then set. Dark chocolate will have extra cocoa fat added and a bit of extra sugar, so there's going to be less polyphenols. Do you know what I mean? Because they have added fat and added sugar, so they're going to be a bit less medicinal. But in terms of the eating options, that's the best. So the darker, the better. And there are different flavors. So some people say, "Oh, I don't like dark chocolate; it's too bitter." I'm like, "Well, yeah, okay." Some of them, like Lindt, for example, is quite bitter. So not everyone gets on with the higher cocoa. So say Lindt 95% or 90% is quite bitter, but even their 80% is quite bitter. But I quite like it, but some people don't. But like some brands, like I think Tesco's does this Supreme cooking chocolate that is really gorgeous. It's 80%, 85%.
Oh wow!
And it's really mellow. Like I've given it to people who don't normally like dark chocolate, and they're like, "Oh, this is, it's milder than they expected it to be." So it's there. I think it's Tesco's Supreme, like I can't remember what they call finest cooking chocolate. And they actually, I can't believe anyone would actually cook with it. It's too good. Do you know what I mean?
Oh wow! Okay, that's really
taste wise. But yeah, the optimal would be the Willie's cacao, because it's got no added fat, no added sugar. Because cocoa beans are 50% fat anyway. So yeah.
Amazing. And so your book.
Yes.
Tell me. Remind me.
Shall I get it? I've got a copy of it.
I hope we're still recording. You're going to kill me if we're not. But let me just.
Yeah. Hang on. Sorry about running out of the room. Here we go.
Oh, right. Oh, it's a beautiful cover.
Yes, it's very. Thank you.
Beautiful.
My design.
Did you? That is a beautiful cover. I love it. I love it with the black. And
well,
then
control freak. The whole thing is like is I insist. I designed the cover. I took the photos. I did the drawing. I designed. So I drove Ollie, publisher, completely round the twist, I think. But he was very kind, and he sort of accommodated me. So anyway, this is it. Secret Life of Chocolate. It's
that's my. Oh, hello. I've just messed me thing up.
Oh.
Thank you, Sleek. And where can you get it?
On the publisher's website, which is Eon Books, AEON, eonbooks.co.uk, and also for Americans from barnesandnoble.com. You can get it from barnesandnoble.com. Amazon for the lockdown have taken it off all of their sites because they consider it non-essential. So I would say to anybody who buys it, please review it on Amazon and maybe email them and suggest that they stock it if you want. But
my sister runs a post office, and they're out of bog standard chocolate. She said she's never sold so much chocolate. How anyone thinks that chocolate is not
essential?
The lockdown. Everyone's eating more chocolate and carbs and biscuits and everything, but everyone's eating more chocolate, and not least to say about all the health benefits.
Yes, exactly.
All the health benefits. So if you're going to eat chocolate, if you can get hold of it, eat the good chocolate.
Yeah.
Because it's all helping to boost your immunity.
Yes. Let me see if I can. Now I've got the book in front of me, I might be able to find something that's relevant to the. I mean, there's a whole section on its health benefits and on the research on it and whatnot, but here we go. The one about the breathing, anti-asthmatic activity. So there's a lab test result that shows that cacao reduces the production of a substance called neopterin in white blood cells, indicating anti-inflammatory effects and the potential for cacao to modulate the immune system, perhaps damping down some types of allergic responses. But that's only a lab test result, so should be taken as an early days finding. Similarly, the phenolic compound, this was it, I couldn't remember the name of, clovamide, dilates the airways in vitro with the same potency as the anti-asthmatic drug salbutamol, often marketed as Ventolin. Wow. Clovamide was detected in the urine 2 hours after humans consumed cacao beverages, indicating that it found its way into the general circulation and might be expected to affect the lungs. It's been found to allay coughing caused by inhaling chili fumes, for example. The alkaloid, it wasn't theobromine, it's theophylline in cacao, even more strongly inhibits airway spasm and inflammation, as well as impairing histamine release. Its effects likely outweigh those of the minute amount of histamine in cacao. Likewise, cacao's principal alkaloid, theobromine, also suppresses the cough reflex. And anyway, it goes on. So there's and last thing in this section, even more intriguingly, children born to mothers who consume chocolate during pregnancy have a lower incidence of asthma. Wow. So anyway, there's loads of stuff like that in here, like this, and it explains all the mechanisms, and there's stuff about all the, if you want to get really geeky, there's an appendix with all of the chemicals in chocolate listed and what they all do and how they're absorbed, and so
and you can obviously and you've referenced all the research papers backing everything up that you're saying.
Everything is exhaustively and possibly also exhaustively.
Knowing you, it would be. Knowing you would have totally done that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And actually,